meeting. There is a confidential section, which is unusual, but that's for commercial reasons and that. So hopefully anybody watching will bear with us, because there are things that have to be discussed in confidential. But we've got, again, officers try and bring as much as they can, in my experience here, into the public area. So hopefully there'll be some questions there we can help enlighten everybody. So I'm going to start off with the apologies for absence first of all. I've got in my order, Councillor Colin Ball, Councillor Whaley Ho, Councillor Paul Ray, Councillor Sue Woodward, my wife, and Councillor Brian Yates. That's it, isn't it? I think that's correct. Yeah. I'm talking about this meeting only. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. And then we have the minutes of the previous meeting. We don't have matters arising, but we have a pre-meeting, so views have been expressed. Anybody move those? Yes, Anne, please. Councillor Lewis.
Can I just make a comment on them, which is that they seem to me to be a rather bland account of certainly one item on the last meeting's agenda, the success or lack of it of the Youth Council. And I think, although we had to endorse the only proposal on offer, we were very critical of mistakes that had been made, and I think that was a general view by the councillors present, and it seems to be a rather bland summing up of what was a much more robust, perhaps even hostile change with the cabinet member. Yeah,
I think wimpy is another term you could use, but not a very good council term. I should point out that I and some of the others have been on a chairing skills training last week. Though this didn't come up, I would perhaps next time to perhaps encapsulate what people's views were, even if there weren't specific issues there. General views were, we weren't very happy at all with the way that the youth assistant, well, the youth council has gone or not gone, and so reflect that in future ones. But okay, we're not going to change the minutes, I don't think, here now, but I think that is important to note. Thank you for that, and that's my view. And I know it's others, not saying everybody's. They agreed though. Thank you. Yeah. Obviously. Health matters. This is two reports from myself with regard to the Health and Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee. First one, because it was after the last meeting, 31st of July, and there's two issues that we looked at there in detail. One is a savings delivery plan that the NHS and the ICB have to follow. The next one is about the cardiac catheter lab proposal. I thought this was particularly of interest, having had gone through angiograms, which I didn't find a problem at all, but I know some people do. But the difference in costs there between about £1,600 and now £250 for a scan, which is less invasive, and I thought that's interesting. And then there's reports from the district borough scrutiny meetings, and you'll see on the bottom of that page 9, that the county council, who's a member now of the Health Scrutiny Task Group, as per the agreement we have with the county, all districts, they say they've got some information which I'll quote from later on when we come to the task groups. The next one is was on the 15th of September, so it was only on Monday. I can lose these things. Choices policy. This is about the choices for people choosing care homes. I get the impression quite a few people didn't seem to know at the committee that if you go into a care home and you're happy to pay, I don't know, 1,000 to 2,000 rather a week for your care, when you run out of money, that's to say, when you get your savings get down to £23,250, you have to find somebody to top up that difference. Now the county have been a bit generous with that, I think, in the past by the looks of it, and they've got a new system where there is some sort of replanning, but that is a problem for the council, as you can see here. The increased cost pressures there. I mean, just quite dramatic cost pressures. And that, by the way, that 23,250, that was a figure from the 1st of April 2019. That's the one I was giving advice on when I used to work for Age UK. That particular issue, but the issue that was a bit controversial was the 25-mile radius. Did that include public transport and all sorts of things like that? But I'd certainly recommend, if you're interested in a bit more information, that's available on the county's website. The consultation, I wasn't impressed with when I went through it. It was a very simple consultation, and if you've got a chance to get on there and make your views known for your residents, if not for yourselves, I recommend that. But it's a very poor consultation, and we did ask for an extension for it because nobody seems to know about it, really. I seem to have missed it. Well, they did retweet it now because it did something. Freedom to speak up, that's about the lessons learned from the mid-staff's inquiry, where nursing staff weren't able to speak up about matters because of the fear of reprisals and affecting your future advancement and so on. But there is a system in place, and the National Guardian Office will look at every single comment made by anybody in any NHS trust, which I think is very, very useful. That's good there. Draw that attention to that. The next meeting is an extra one on top of the ones we already had, and so it's missing from this update that we've got here, because that's an extra one on the 10th of November. So that's not been there for that one. Anybody any questions? You ought to have, really, because we're all getting older, but never mind. There's the work programme there, and the work for that particular scrutiny committee. And agenda item 5 is the scrutiny task group meeting. Do you want to say anything on that briefly?
Yeah, I'll say something really briefly.
Right, Chair, thank you.
So we had it on 5th of September, Local Health Matters Task Group. We were joined by ICB and Primary Care Estates joined us, which was very good. So officers did really well to secure those dates ahead, because having heard that many other areas haven't been successful to have a meeting with the ICB and Primary Care team. So basically, this space here for the new Burntwood Health Centre talks of a residential care space, general practice, and a health centre. And we discussed there could be other provisions used in there as well, such as pharmacy and dental. So this is where the chair may need you to help us to push for dentists, because as we know, that's lacking in the area as well. But that, they said it could be suggested, but there's no confirmation of that as well. In the meeting, it really helped us to understand the delays and the progress as well. So we talked of the local authorities, the issues of Sports England playing pitches, their queries objecting on losing these playing pitches, road development issues at Cherry Close, and then also there's planning delays as well. And as well as project board meetings with the design of the building. And there's also health challenges faced, which means of finance. They need to assess the health requirements in the area, and also to test site reporting as well. So what they're aiming for here is basically a neighbourhood health centre, the 10-year NHS plan, where they're aiming for Monday to Saturday, 12-hour access, bringing services closer to residents. So at present, they are in redesign progress with the space inside, for example, clinical activities, which should be about 3 months. We've been informed in the meeting. And then the first half of 2026, they hope to submit planning applications and approval, but that is subject to approval. And after that would be building will be 2 years. We have requested a task group for planning plans, because that'd be really helpful for us to see, and also to keep the communication as well.
Okay. Yeah, the reply we got from Councillor Tracy Doherty, but following up on the task group's behalf, the issues. This is an email to Will. I've spoken with several people regarding the matter. I've been advised by Ian Turner, whoever he is. In terms of the Burntwood site, Cabinet members agreed to progress the site on a hybrid application basis, so detailed for the centre and outlined for the remainder of the site. Work still needs to be done with LDC regarding the playing field mitigation options, hence what will be submitted for the other parts of the site in terms of outline. Initially, there are 3 options for the site. We only want a health centre, but there are 3 options. Just the health centre, 2, health centre and care home, or 3, health centre, care home, residential 55 plus, and extra care and other use. The first two would leave some playing fields on site, and we will need someone to manage those. And Ian, I think Ian Turner, is looking to get a planning application submitted within 6 months, as the Vice Chair, as Councillor Young has just said. And she's forwarded that on to others that ask for more an update on the progress on that. Well, this was promised in 2009, 2 health centres for Burntwood, and been various delays, and it was going to be up and running at the end of this year. And of course, that's not happening. And now we're talking about 2028. So I put in a few freedom information requests on some questions on that. Thanks. Please, Councillor Bagger.
Thank you. Could I ask a question about the site? Because as I understand it, all of those options will take existing playing fields. And I know in other areas there have been almost insurmountable obstacles that things can be blocked because it's taking playing fields. Has work been done to ensure that it says here will definitely go ahead, that there won't be any issue about the playing fields when it comes to planning and objections?
Well, they have to convince Sport England. I've used Sport England against the county council when I was a county councillor to say you can't have that playing field. They say forget it, because it is a statutory consultee, and it's been this policy has been there for some time, at least 10 years, if not more. And obviously, so you can lose a playing field if you can find something else to replace it in that leisure sport field. But I think it's going to be extremely difficult for the county, so they're working on that.
I'll just add really quickly, because we did raise about that. So they did say they're looking to replace the playing pitches for Sports England. They were losing. They are going to find those pitches for them, and that's and then they did mention that's pretty much sorted as well. So that's why they object, but now they're saying it's in negotiation, and it looks quite positive in the discussion.
Right. Thank you. I mean that gets to the more question, because I fear that could be another obstacle, and when we're assured that that's been sorted, I think that would be a big step forward. But clearly that hasn't happened yet. But you say it's hopeful.
Yeah, that's what the primary care estates have said. They have already spoken about this, so they're going to replace the pitches on that. And just to add in really quickly as well on that, I was going to mention. Yeah, so as we said, it was subject to planning, but of course with sports, if their planning pitches are next to it, they will be having a say in planning. So again, planning, is it going to be 6 months, or is it going to be longer if there are or residents as well?
Yeah, and that was kind of my point, and obviously we haven't got answers yet on.
It's already built on playing fields, as it happens, the county, and they've neglected some fields, so it's never used. So but if you look on Google Maps, it's still on Google Maps. You can see about 5 pitches on the playing field. So it's going to be a very difficult one. Sorry, Martin.
No, that's good.
Trent, yeah.
Thank you. The notes seem to refer to possibility of some consultation. On the top of the second page, it says we'll assess the healthcare requirements of the neighbourhood, and a bit lower down, conversations regarding local community need. Did they give any detail about? So are they consulting on those things? It says it might take a number of weeks.
Which part are you on? Sorry.
On the second page of
this on the task group report. Second page.
Which paragraph?
It first said right at the top line says to assess the healthcare requirements of the neighbourhood.
Yes. So basically they do a. Yeah, we did question about that as well. So basically, they have each neighbourhood. They have different demands like age or illnesses or like what they need, what's need to be supported in each of these different areas. All areas are completely different. So they need to assess each district. Brentwood, what are the ages, what are could be the health, well-being, all of that together. They need to assess that. And then that links to testing the site and designing the clinical activity inside the rooms. So for example, like at the moment, it's just empty shell, but they need to plan what's the design inside, what rooms, what's the medical need, is it just GP only, or dentistry, or whatever the demand is in there. And so that's what they need to assess first before they put in planning.
I'm just wondering whether that will involve any kind of consultation, or are they assessing
They
internally?
assessing themselves. Asked them to do with consultation, but they said they're doing their own assessment.
I wouldn't bother. We were consulted in 2008 and we're going to get 12 centres.
Yeah.
Lost complete faith in the ICB with regard to that. They keep changing staff, of course, PCT to ICB and all those things. So, yeah, we'll see. That's okay. Then I'll go on to the next time.
One point, so just
Yeah, please.
Really useful. Because the county councillor was away on this meeting, because I really hope that she'll be there to speak, so we get a county point of view. Unfortunately, she's away. She did email saying that she would provide a overview update to us, and that was basically 13th of August, the day after you received the email. But I haven't had anything on that, so hopefully we'll give her a chase as we have since our last task group meeting, and we'll get, if there's any overview updates, we'll show it to the task group as well.
Yeah, because there's two things that you're looking at. One is the Samuel Johnson and the maternity services, they will call it. And then they say, and if you get something that's worth then for the task group to meet. And
rather than the small ones, we want to overview. As she said, she would give that to us, but it's been over a month now. We haven't had anything. So,
local government, month's not a long time, you know.
Well, we're very active in the task group. We do, you know, we've all like the different people coming over to speak to us.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, the next one is the verbal report, item 6, and I understand that Kerry Dove is going to help us with that. I've made the room smaller now. I had so many apologies anyway. I mean, it's quite a bit in the MTFS as well, regard to some questions there, the update on the local government finance report and so on. So, but yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So we are continuing to work in collaboration with the 5 other district and borough councils in the south of the county to develop our LGR proposals and business cases, and we are being supported by KPMG in doing that. 2 business cases are currently in development, one which is proposing 1 unitary covering the south of the county, and one which is proposing 2 unitaries covering the south. Obviously the 2 unitary option would be Stafford, Cannock and South Staffs in 1 unitary, and then ourselves, Tamworth and East Staffs in the second. So those 2 business cases are in development, and then it will be for each council to then decide which business case that they wish to submit to central government by the 28th of November. We are also liaising really closely with Stoke City Council, as central government have made it clear that any proposal that's submitted by a council must cover the whole geography of Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. So we cannot just submit a proposal on the south. It has to also provide a solution for the north of the county as well. As I'm sure you're all aware, in the last few weeks, the County Council has now published an alternative model. So they're proposing to create 2 new unitary councils, one for the east of the county, which includes Lichfield, Tamworth, East Staffs and Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, and one for the west of the county, which includes Stafford, Cannock Chase, Newcastle-under-Lyme and South Staffordshire. As I'm also sure you're aware, over the summer we've been running an LGR survey, which we've been promoting amongst residents, businesses and stakeholders to share their views. That closed on the 1st of September. There's been over 16,700 responses from across the south of the county, with over 3,100 responses from Lichfield District. We're still analysing all of the responses and the data. However, there was overwhelming support for the option to establish 2 unitaries in the county. Some of the key priorities identified by respondents for a new council were keeping services based on local needs, having local councillors that listen, and saving money while keeping services running. The results from that survey will be a key piece of evidence that is used in the business cases. I'd say that work on the business cases is happening now and will continue to be developed over the next few weeks. We are working with the other district and boroughs to attempt to align decision-making routes and timescales. In an ideal world, we want to be all publishing our reports for full council and cabinet at the same time, so that we're all going live with those business case documents at the same time. The monitoring officers have been having discussions about the preferred route for getting business case engagement and sign off, and their preference is that the business cases are considered by full council first and then by cabinet, as it is an executive function agreeing these business cases. The MOs are currently working to try and diarise some special council meetings to do this, and we're currently looking at holding that the week commencing the 3rd of November, with then cabinet meetings then to follow in the weeks afterwards, but making sure that each council can still hit that 28th of November submission deadline.
Okay, well, with regard to it going to the council first and then cabinet, and by the way, I know you didn't mention this committee, but I'll leave that, you know. What position does that put the cabinet in? The cabinet will have to go by what the whole of the, you know, I don't know how it works. It's the way around, I understand, but back to front. Do you know what the thinking is, how it might work?
We're definitely in new territory, I think,
Yeah.
Chair. I think what the paper will do is probably present a recommendation for full council to consider in terms of which business case to support, and then we'll look to have a really full and frank debate about it at full council.
It says new territories there. Although you say that, I mean, I still hope to get from the LGA some idea of what's happened elsewhere. You know, like Shropshire is just one whole Shropshire, and they're struggling, but you know, to get some lessons learned from other previous local reviews. So one more question, then I'm going to open it up. One is, which is, it was a good question. If I can remember what it is, I'll think of it later. Yes, please.
Yeah, mine was a follow up to your question.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously, as you're saying, it's new territory. So if we have a recommendation for X to council, and say then council approves that, would it be possible for the cabinet to make a different decision? Because I mean, it might be unlikely, but is that possible? Or what is the point of it going to cabinet? Because are there follow-on decisions, or is it, which I could understand, or is it looking at the big decision which has been to full council? And that, to my mind, doesn't make sense.
Only heard the final decision, I suppose, isn't it?
Yes, so I think the MOs are clear. It's an executive decision to take. However, given the impact that this has on the council, it's really imperative that it does go to full council in some way for a full, open, transparent debate, and for all councillors to be able to share their views. So I think probably I will double check with the MOs and take that away as a question. There is probably, therefore, they could make a different decision.
Right, thank you.
It would be unlikely, but I will double check.
Yeah, I mean, however unlikely it is, I think we need to know for sure. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, I'm Hughes.
Yeah, I just wondered if you might not know this, but given that the minister in charge of local government is one of the casualties of the recent upheavals in the government, has there been any sense of a delay? Because I think it's only is it Alison? What's her name? Who's now in?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's no indication of delays or.
No, we've had no communication from MHCLG to say there was a change of direction or a change of timescale. So as officers, we are continuing to move forward and very conscious of that 28th of November. there is rumour and speculation, as you mentioned, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I've got to remember the question, but Councillor John Hill was next.
Yeah, just for clarity, did you say that they've decided to go for 2 unitary things rather than 3? Did you say the
That was
one
the county.
within the county?
No, 2.
That's the county.
So what we're currently looking at in the south, so that's just Stafford Borough, East Staffs down,
Yes.
is whether we want 2 unitaries in the south or 1 unitary in the south to then complement the 3rd unitary, which is
3 altogether.
the north of the county of Stoke, Newcastle and Mourne.
Okay, so they're considering one that does not include Stoke, is that correct?
So there's Staffordshire County Council have announced their proposal, which is an east-west split, and they're proposing to split the county into 2 unitaries.
Because wasn't there something that I saw that it was in 3? That something that I looked at.
Can I help? What we're proposing is 2 in the south, but that one, there's also the 3rd one. So it'd be 3 in the county, including the old boundary for the Staffordshire. It'll be 3 altogether, we're suggesting, but we're only talking about the 2 in the south. Then there's the one in the north, which is Stoke-on-Trent, Newcastle. Newcastle, by the way, had a referendum in 1905, I think it was, and again in 1935. So we don't want anything to do with Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah. Like, in fact, when I became a county council in 1999, all these empty benches, because Stoke-on-Trent had just become a unitary, or term was then unitary authority itself. So, you know, things are moving all the time, I suppose. But it's 3, but the county council are the only body I understand that are suggesting a sort of east, sort of west, if you've got a wibbly wobbly line, split, which would include Stoke-on-Trent. I would say is in the west, really, with Lichfield district in the east.
Okay. It's just that I get a lot of people in Paisley and around there that are saying they're rather concerned about the prospect of decisions being made at Stoke.
Well, they should be concerned about decisions being made in Stafford now. You see, this is it.
Okay.
No, this is where we have to make sure, in my view, sorry, make sure we can strengthen parish councils with have their view, and make sure that we have our say in the local government review, that services still carry on as we would like, and that we have to think about that. So, okay.
Thank you.
And what I was going to ask, in fact, was about the population size. If you've got 3 in the old boundary of Staffordshire, those figures are slightly smaller than what the government suggested, which I think is 5,000. Anything on that one yet? Any signals from the government or elsewhere that it's still a possibility? Definitely not a no-no, you know.
So our interpretation is it's definitely not a no. Obviously, the 500k came out in the devolution white paper. However, then there's been subsequent communication from MHCLG to make it clear that that was only a suggestion, and that actually areas were encouraged to put forward other proposals that they felt best met the needs of their areas. So there has been our interpretation, a softening of language on the 500k figure.
Thank you. The one that's been in my head all the way through really is, I mean, I'm enjoying this. 50 years ago, there wasn't a Lichfield District Council, right? And county Stafford Stoke's changed. I've been around when the government of the day abolished councils here and there. And it's good fun and it's important, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm not a member of staff. How is it working for the staff? How are they being helped? Their well-being, if you like. I mean, that's what's been concerned me from the beginning, really.
Absolutely.
I know Will's worried.
Yeah.
So, as I think you'd expect, we've taken a really open and transparent approach to communicating with staff. So we are regularly keeping them updated via Simon's weekly messages. We have sessions at our monthly all hands call where people can ask questions. We've also done drop-in sessions as well. made it clear any questions at all on LGR, any concerns, come and speak to us. Also been engaging with the local Unison branch as well, again to make those same offers. I think generally staff are okay, would probably be my summary. There are some concerns, however, our main message to staff is no matter what the final configuration is, there is still a need for committed, dedicated local government staff. And I think here at Lichfield District, we are blessed with a whole workforce of them. So for those who are early in their career, there's probably going to be opportunities and opportunities to broaden out into different areas as well. So it'll probably just be the top tiers of the management structure that are like.
Yeah, I was going to say, there will be fewer chief executives, there will be,
Be fewer directors, yes. So for the vast majority of staff, there will be jobs and there will be job opportunities, and that's our key message. So yeah, let's say.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Councillor Tom Marshall.
Steve, I think you've probably stolen my thunder slightly there, because I was going to touch on. No apology needed. But I think it brings me quite nicely onto the subject that I was just about to mention, and that is, of course, aside from the obvious emotional upheaval which could well be caused by this, and I fully understand that. Has anybody done an exercise in calculating the likely cost of, dare I use the word, redundancies? Because there will be redundancies, of course. It's impossible to have this reorganisation without that happening. So at some point, in the cold light of day, we're going to have to face up to the fact that there will be financial implications. And I'm just wondering whether that was a consideration or part of the considerations when the government minister decided to embark on this process, because it's almost as though the law of unintended consequences is kicking in here. And it might have seemed an awfully good idea in some ways, but I think once you start to dig down and look at the minutiae of what's going to be happening locally, one has to question whether it is a good idea. Now, I know that we're not here to do that, because that ship has sailed, but there could well be severe cost implications, and have they been quantified?
So some initial financial analysis and modelling has been completed with the support of KPMG. I don't believe it's gone into that level of granularity yet in terms of redundancies. I know the people work stream, of which I say a number of officer work streams have been set up to help contribute evidence and insight into these business cases. I've sat on the people work stream, and we have made that very point, Tom, in terms of redundancies and redundancy costs. So that work will come, but probably after the business case is submitted in November.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? I think there's sort of another opportunity for the MTFS on particular aspects of local government review and that. But if yes, Councillor Waterfall, thank you.
What happens to the council, the existing council buildings?
I think that's for the future.
In this
It's
reorganisation?
only left now. I mean, it's mostly taken over by businesses. You go back to the when I first arrived, but yeah, Kerry, sorry.
Yes, so they will all become the assets of the new unitary authority.
Okay.
I'll come back to that later, because the assets is referred to in the MTFS, so that'd be useful to just ask Anthony to say a bit more about that then, I think. If that's okay, then we'll move on to the next item. Yeah, I'm going to move, by the way. So the next item is also being looked at, the LWM annual report. What? Well, it's for West Midlands. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I think for a second. But what I was going to say about that. Yes, this will also be going to be looked at by audit. And I assume audit will be looking more at the governance of it and sort of thing. Can you help me on that, well, Consumer?
Yes, so it's a similar report will be going to audit committee later this year. Whereas this is the strategic end of the review, looking at the strategic direction of LBM. That report we focused more on the granular financial details of the company.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say really is that there is a recommendation, very simple recommendation here. Overview of scrutiny, review the annual report, but also to comment, I would suggest. And I've got some initial questions, but if you could introduce yourself, all of us.
Everyone, my name's Andrea Felton and I'm Finance Director for LWM. So I'll just give a brief introduction to the report and then open the floor to any questions that councillors may have. So this is the annual report for 24-25, which marks the end of our third year of trading. So the report captures all of our activities and our achievements over the last financial year and also gives an overview of its performance against the business plan. So the 24-25 business plan did state that the company were going to be focused on strengthening the delivery of established services that we run on behalf of the council and also increasing our trading opportunities. So the reason why that element was important is that that is the main purpose of the company. So we generate income from our trading opportunities and then pass that back to the council in the form of fees and a dividend so that we can support the council in funding its services to its residents. So just looking at the performance over the year, so we had strong results. We exceeded 6.9 million in revenue. After contributing 277,000 in fees to the council, we delivered a surplus of 158,000. So this meant we were able to pay a dividend of 100,000. So it was the first ever dividend that we'd been able to pay. Our core services performed strongly. Our new ventures, so planning consultancy, human resources and ecology brokerage, they landed really well, delivering real value during the year. So the annual report gives you both highlights of the company's key achievements as well as a strategic review of each service area and what they did within the year. So just looking forward to 25-26, so the current year. Again, it's mainly business as usual, so mainly focused on our existing business streams and expanding any trading capacity of our high potential areas. So we deem those areas to be ecology, planning consultancy and our talent acquisition business streams. We're also going to be supporting the council in the acquisition and delivery of temporary accommodation and social housing, which we did last year. Financially, it will be a similar position to 24-25, turnover of 6.7 million. We expect our external income to reach 843,000, with a minimum surplus of 384, and that's before any fees and before a dividend, which we are aiming to pay out again. I'd just like to reassure councillors as well that although our external income is growing, we are keeping a close eye on TECL compliance. So we're ensuring.
Yeah, you say a little bit more about. I was going to ask you to say a little bit more about that, just for anybody watching the programme, because I think going around taking business off people is not quite so.
Well, TECL compliance means that the council need to be our main customer. So we have to keep monitoring to make sure that our external income doesn't creep above 20%. So we closely monitor that. So 24-25, our external income was 11% of our total income, and our budget for 25-26 is 15%. So we're still well above that 20%, and it is something that we do monitor closely. In terms of governance, I'd just like to add that the governance of the company is being strengthened with the creation of a shareholder advisory board. This is something that councillors have requested, that is looked at. Terms of reference have been drafted and a cabinet member decision on the creation of this board will be published shortly.
Okay. I'll turn to some initial questions on the executive summary. First of all, 1.4, which is about the terms of reference and so on, but for that one, but the other one was about the you've just said that and made it quite heard you correctly about the three main parties of the council. The invitations haven't gone out yet, have they?
I'll come in on that one, Chair.
Thank you.
No, they haven't yet. So the creation of the shareholder board needs to be a cabinet member decision. So that's been drafted, including terms of reference. So as Andrea said, that's that report is pretty much ready to go. So hopefully that'll be published imminently in terms of a cabinet member decision, and then we can get the.
It's the 18th now, isn't it? Going to be done for September? Do you think it might be a little bit behind schedule?
We might be slightly behind schedule in terms of having a meeting by the end of September, but hopefully we've gone through the decision-making process in terms of being able to establish the shareholder advisory board by the end of September.
And on the terms of reference, Councillor Bradley had it correct.
Yes, I mean, I read this here about the terms of reference, and I'm clearly interested what they are, and wondered if I'd missed them somehow because I haven't seen them. And you've just kind of answered that, but actually, I do think it's important that councillors see that and have a way of commenting. Now, clearly, there's a procedure after a cabinet member's decision, but that is. To have, for people to have confidence in it, and for us as councillors to have confidence, we need to see it and be able to comment on it. I think because there's no point in just creating it for the sake of creating it. It has to have a function, and we need to clearly see what the powers are and the relationship with the board, so that we can all understand that. And so I await that, and I hope that all councillors have the opportunity to then question that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go through this page by page, but relatively. Sorry, Michael.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a very quick question, really. I'm almost conflating agenda items 6 and 7 here, but obviously LWM appears to be going very well. It's a success story. What would be the likely implications then of local government reorganisation? We've just been talking about it. Would LWM be able to just carry on almost regardless and with impunity, or is it likely to be badly impacted by local government reorganisation?
Well, trading company is wholly owned by Lichfield District Council, so I assume that will into the new unit.
Yeah, so very much like the assets of the district council, this is a wholly owned trading company of Lichfield District Council, so it will become a wholly owned trading company of the new unitary authority. It'll then be for the new unitary authority to decide the future of it.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Trent, Miles Trent.
Connected to Councillor Marshall's point, there's a page of the draft annual report, page 41 of the bundle.
I'm not there yet.
Well, it's connected.
That
talks about the future. It doesn't say anything about local government reorganisation. I wondered, is that deliberate, or is that something that really ought to be referenced there if we're looking forward to the future?
Yeah, I think we will need to include it within our risks, but I think at this stage it is early days to really feed it into our financial plans at this stage.
It just seemed a bit conspicuous by its absence there. Talking about what's coming next.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Are you agreeing with Councillor Trent? This is conspicuous by its absence. Or? Because we councillors, we like credit where it's due. One day I hope to catch Anthony Thomas one day. Right, okay. Well, I'm going to go through page by page relatively quickly. So page 22, background there. Shout up, please. And page 23, you've got the formal consultations and that with the monitoring officer and so on there. I'll actually skip that little bit and go on to the third part of the page 28, the highlights of the year, which have been alluded to. Section 1, page 29. 28, chair of the board statement there, page 31. Page 32, 33. 34. We slow down at page 35 because I've got something there in case you thought it wasn't going to happen. On the project management, the view of the year 20. I'm not sure I've got that highlighted for. That was just a good thing, I think. So yeah, that must be it. But I do have on page 36 the talent acquisition. I don't know enough about that. If you could spend a minute just this looks very good, and I just want to know how that worked really. And will you be able to do that for the nursery later on in the well, that's that later then. But, talent acquisition.
So we have
How do you manage it? I have no idea.
So this is a talent acquisition lead. So she assists in searching. So instead of the traditional placing a job advert, leaving it there for three weeks, waiting for people to apply, going through the process, realizing there's nobody suitable, having to go through that process again, it speeds up the process. So she searches for people. So if we,
is it a bit like headhunting or?
So she looks at LinkedIn. We still do put an advert out as well, but people contact her directly, and we put in the advert that as soon as we receive enough applications that we feel the people are strong enough, then we will close the application, and it's just a way of speeding up that process and getting the right people.
Like more restricted in schools about doing that sort of thing, headhunting and that, but we're able to do that using the LWM. That's good. I mean, it's been successful. So
I would just add to what Andrea has said, Chair, as well as it speeding up the process. There's obviously opportunity for our talent acquisition lead to really sell what it's like to work here or work at LWM or work at one of the other companies or authorities that we're supporting with this service. So you get a better dynamic as well with potential candidates and that opportunity to really sell the benefits of working either here or for one of our clients.
Thank you. Thanks. 37 and then push 38. 38.
37.
37, yes, thank you.
Bingo, isn't it? It was just a very, very minor point, I think, but facility highlights. I thought maybe that should be rephrased because two of those bullet points are about challenges, and things that we might be able to hopefully improve. So it seemed like a minor point.
To the draft, so helping you there. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Leo. Sorry, it's always sorry.
So I'm just going to add a point on top of what Councillor Trent has mentioned. So climbing wall, actually, I don't know if this is really specific. It was a really exciting project and it does cost to maintain as well. But having looked on the website for the leisure centre, it only opens 1 hour, like a week, or maybe a few hours, which really limits how families or any age can use the climbing wall, and hence this is why the reason why it's not generating the income or being used as well. Is that something going to be looked at in the future, the climbing wall, because it's there, but it's not really in use at all, even on bookings on booking system, same with tennis courts as well. It's very underused.
Which we have alluded to in the paper. So we have it is below our expectations. So now we're looking into, well, how can we utilise it more and how can
maybe open it up to more hours rather than just 1 hour a week.
So that is being investigated.
Gas Marshal, Tom.
Just a quick question, please. I'm on page 37 and it's leisure. I'm just looking at the fact that we've had 8.5% growth in leisure activity, etc., throughout the district, which is fantastic. And let's hope we can build on that as well. I'm just wondering, do we ever have any sort of link up with the GP practices in Lichfield, where we can have a situation where rather than prescribing pills and whatever, they're saying we're going to enable you to have 2 months access to the leisure centre, where you will be given advice by a physical trainer who will help you get fit and particularly if they've had an operation on their leg or something and they need to build up the muscles. Just wondering whether we couldn't have that kind of symbiosis where GP practices work with the leisure services to give this holistic approach.
Social prescribing.
Take that one, Chair.
You want to answer that detail?
So yes, and we absolutely do. So I think ONS had a briefing note a few months ago from the health and wellbeing manager in LDC, and we have developed a whole range of different outreach programs aimed at different cohorts of residents who we want to encourage to get more active. And one of those programmes is actually working with social prescribers in the GP practices. So they refer into the health and wellbeing manager and these various programmes. And we've got some brilliant case studies in terms of the difference that those programmes have made to get people more active and having a real impact on their health conditions as well. And the health and wellbeing manager works hand in glove with leisure services in terms of, as you said, offering free passes as well and free swims, etc. So we can really make that behavioural change.
Thank you very much. That's a very positive answer, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hill?
That would be particularly of interest to my wife, who went through 2 operations on her feet, affected her hip, and she recently went to the doctors. They said she needs some therapy and whatever, but don't bother getting back in touch because they can't fit her until the new year. So something like that would be perfect for swimming or such, to strengthen everything up. So I think it's a great idea personally. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Page 38, if we finished on page 37.
We have now finished on page 38, 37, yes. Yeah.
It was just about the planning service. It was, I understand what sort of thing you must be doing with developers and so on, but so you provide support to other planning authorities. I don't know if you're allowed to tell us which planning authorities, but whether they're local or whether it's, you know, across the country, but also what sort of thing are you providing to local?
Peer review.
Right.
You know, looking at what they do internally, looking at their procedures and really giving that peer to peer advice.
And is that across the country?
Yes, I don't believe it's been any local.
Right, okay. Thanks.
But I would need to
into
exactly which ones it is, but there are and south main.
Ooh, thank you.
Wouldn't be in Kent, would it? Right, page 39. I've got the ecology brokerage. I mean, that is, it says here the ecology brokerage is unique in local government and we are unique in it. Could you say a little bit more about that and how it came about, really? And if you're able to, that.
I don't know the history of how it came about, but the main thing is helping develop.
Here in Littlewood District, how it came about. Not as a
I don't
principle.
know the background. It was here before my time.
No. So.
I can help a little bit. So here at the District Council, we've always been quite far ahead of the game in comparison to other authorities around biodiversity net gain. You know, we were definitely ahead of the curve on that. So through our work on that, I think that's where we spotted the opportunity of actually there's a role that we could potentially play in terms of brokering between landowners around biodiversity net gain. And we could see that the private sector was already starting to hoover up the market when actually there was a real opportunity through a LATCO to make sure that this money stays within public services and not all going out into the private sector.
Wait, it's 16. As far as you're aware, it's unique for us at the moment. Great. Well, keep going, because if it's a good idea, it's not going to be wanting to do that, aren't they? Page 40, I think. Page 41 on the future, and you've got priorities there. I think Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I just had it's very rare for anyone in this council to say that anything's not all for the best in the best of all possible worlds. So it says here, you're probably not going to answer it, but companies considering taking on a couple of services from the council that are currently struggling. I wonder if you've got any hints as to what those are.
Priority 1 on the
Priority 1.
Right. I think it was just there maybe. I don't think it was, you know, there are definitely some things that have been talking about. I think it's just you know, this may happen, and if that were to happen, you know, that would obviously be.
I'll get an example.
Yes.
I didn't read it that way, but yeah.
Yeah, how this is just in the unlikely event that any service currently struggling.
I want to emphasise that perhaps from you as well.
This
Mark,
this bit caught my eye as well. 'Cause elsewhere in the report, it says there isn't any intention to transfer new sections or new functions to the company. That is generally the case. This is
I
saying.
think it's just saying, you know, that's always our main priority, because that was one of the reasons why the company was set up as well as making trading money. It was there to support the council in delivering services more efficiently.
Thank you. And then later I got the human resources there, where it wasn't quite so successful insofar as you discovered, Eldon discovered that you needed a permanent director for the function there. How did that affect the projected plans?
Well, we needed a new HR director because our previous HR consultant did leave the business on the 31st of March, which is why we've looked to appoint a new HR director.
Okay, thank you. Page 42. Hey, sorry, Miles, please.
I think it's on page 42. Yeah, so it mentioned about the launch of the brand new leisure centre, which is scheduled for December 2025. I just wondered if you had any more information about how the communications plan, how that launch is planned, and what's in hand for that.
No, there's lots planned, but I don't have the details with me, but I can certainly share that with you all.
Interested in you know what the ideas are for promoting it for that opening.
Be there.
That way.
Yeah.
Page 43. And the director's report. 44. 5. 46. And at the end, 47. Maybe we want to thank Councillor Alex Farrell. He's highly in other places, so I'll have to say, oh no, you're going to object to that?
No, I'm not going to object that. You're going to tell me off, Chair. I had a quick.
No, it's all right. If you've gone
Page 45, I had a quick question.
Page
45.
45, yeah.
There's reference to recruiting NEDs this year. Wondered how many, and what are the details on how that's going to work and when that's going to be?
Our talent acquisition lead is actually going to do some searching for us. So we can appoint up to, I think we can have 7 on our board. So we can appoint up to 3 or 4. So we are searching for new heads this week.
Okay. That is the end of the report, and I'm grateful for the time you've taken to answer the questions we've put here. Might be an unfair question, but were you headhunted, Andrea?
I was.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for you. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Should point out I've been headhunted 2 or 3 times, but only because it's the customers I was working with. Same thing at all.
You count, Steve.
So now going to the medium-term financial strategy. You would see how often we have the reports on this. This is an extra, a little bit different from the previous ones insofar as we're looking to local government review and the challenges, I will call it, at that ahead. But I welcome Councillor Strachan and Anthony Thomas, of course, Director of Finance, Section 151. I'll let you, Councillor Strachan, introduce it if you would like to do that.
Thank you, Chair. That's very kind of you. Members, this is the first part of the emergent MTFS through scrutiny. It is, as ever, an evolution of the previous medium-term financial strategy, and it brings it through into the next year. I intend to speak as little as possible about local government reorganisation tonight, because I know that you've already had a substantive paper on that. What I will say is it is subject to the caveats within local government reorganisation, and we have effectively had a be sensible steer from central government. So don't go spending absolutely everything all at once, because realistically the successor authority has to have something to operate with, whatever it looks like in the fullness of time. So that is not going to form a strut of our financial planning as we go forwards. This is stage 2 of a 7-stage process, which eventually comes through to full council when we all get to comment on it on the 24th of February next year, and it will be coming back to yourselves in January, when hopefully we can give you a final settled document, because that will come after we've had details on our settlement. Today, we're asking for Scrutiny to review the current revenue budget and capital priorities, which were largely agreed, I think, between all parties within the course of the last medium-term financial strategy. You'll see those set out in Appendix C. I didn't take a note of which one it's in. We're asking for a review on what we're currently doing, as set alongside other local authorities, our nearest neighbours, and within the wider national picture. And we're asking for an initial consideration on how we propose to fund all of this. As ever, local government finance is racked with uncertainty, and there are significant levels of income for this authority in the form of retained business rates. And while we have been expecting changes for, I think, now 9 years, we have finally included our consultation response to the forthcoming proposed reset within Appendix B. And you'll also see that appendix contains our response to the proposed fair funding review, which is also long awaited. And as you'll see, it was an extremely wide-ranging and very in-depth consultation. I hope you can see our thinking within those consultation responses and how we're trying to approach it. And of course, I'll stress that the outcomes of both of those central government policies are currently unclear. There are some updates to the previous MTFS, and as ever, in the context of uncertainty, we are proposing to continue largely as we have been, as a well-run, financially well-run authority, operating within our means and using our reserves to tide us through on a least harm basis. Although members will note from the table that we set out at 3.29 within the report, that by the end of year 4 of this MTFS, we are projecting a £3.3 million funding gap. That is not quite the calamity that it appears like, because of that inherent uncertainty within the sector, we assume virtually no income at all beyond the end of year 1. And so it will not look like that in 4 years' time, regardless of whatever authority is here and is running this particular part of any successor authority. We also, though, have built in a little bit more clarity within some of the figures that were only assumptions at the initial stage. For instance, the pay award has now been settled, although that is slightly above the assumption level, although we did expect that. And we have now completed the sale of Venture House, which was £55,000 below the target, but both of those minor adverse variances can be met from existing contingency budgets. You will see within the paper that we assume a number of increases within fees and charges, but those are of course settled within portfolios on a line-by-line basis. But if there are any observations from Scrutiny tonight on those, of course, I will take them back to my colleagues. And you'll see it contains that our current assessment is that we will require a minimum level of reserves of £2 million. So that is, we cannot let it go beyond that floor, but that is finalised when this paper comes back to you in January after the settlement, because that's the point at which Anthony, as Section 151 officer, makes his assessment about exactly what we need to keep the doors open and the lights on. You'll also see, members, hopefully you recall from previous papers, around a third of this authority's income comes from council tax. Given the rates of inflation and the increasing unit costs that we discuss at the head of the paper, there is likely to be a need for increases on our share of council tax. I have long held the view, and I will not depart from it, that we as an authority should not take more than we need, because I believe council tax is a regressive form of taxation, and I know that view is held by some others around the table. Nevertheless, we set out a selection of the options available to us in the table at 3.46. The core assumption within the MTFS as agreed in February is that there will be an increase of 1.99, and the table shows you variations from that. And for reassurance, central government have confirmed very early, actually, in this round, that an increase of up to 2.99 is available. Members who've known me for some length of time know that I prefer to ride as many horses as I possibly can until the last possible moment, and so that will be a decision that is taken as late as it possibly can be. So we know exactly what we need and take no more than that. Members, I'm aware that tonight I'm very much here listening. I may not be giving you very many answers at this point. I will also commit to carry out consultation with my shadow, Councillor Paul Taylor, and representatives from other parties, as well as a wider budget consultation which takes place, and we set out the plan for that within Appendix G. Anthony, is there anything that you'd like to add at this stage?
No, the only thing I'd probably add is that in terms of the consultations, the government hasn't been particularly helpful in that they haven't provided any projections or exemplifications of what the implications
and provide any projections of
the outcomes of what the fair funding
yes.
Right. So our funding advisors are having to work a little bit in the dark. So they've provided projections, but they're not particularly helpful. The other thing I would say is that there are 41 district councils and 8 inner London councils that have been contacted by MHCLG because from the government's own projections, which they're not sharing, they believe that they are going to be particularly adversely affected. We are not one of those councils that have been contacted. Those councils, though, are likely to have specific transitional arrangements, which might mean that they can increase council tax at a higher level than what Councillor Strachan has just mentioned. So it's reassuring to some extent that we're going to be severely impacted by the review.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to hit you, but we might not hit you that hard.
Again, I'll go through page by page if that's okay. But on page 50 there, the patients and page 51. Are we going to help me to say a little bit more so I understand it better on paragraph 313, which is about the NTMF's assumption and the £1 council tax increases and lower funding? Just help me with that to understand that particular paragraph a little bit better.
That's technical.
That's been my fault. There's a lot of technical stuff later on, which I'm not going to attempt to. But on this one, I can help with that one.
Yeah. So there are the reform. There are 3 aspects to the way the government works the reform. So it sets a pot of money aside, a budget at a national level, what it calls need. And what it will do is it will allocate that need out based on a percentage, and you can see some of the percentages that you see. You have some that goes to adult social care, some goes to children, some goes to foundation. Each authority gets a share of that. From that, the government deducts how much they believe you can raise locally from council tax. And the sum of those 2 figures is effectively what the government will allow us to get from funding from themselves.
And can you challenge that as a body or as a council?
I think
there's negotiations, well, discussions, we'll call that. Go on.
I think these consultations that we've responded to is our challenge. I think what will happen later, October, November, the government will publish their response to these consultations, and they will give us a policy paper which will basically set out how they plan to implement it. I don't think there'll be much, if any, challenge available after that. But what on the resource side, where I talk about the £1, what it means is that if you take us as an example, we've got a council tax base of around 40,000. If you compare us to, say, Tamworth, who are probably around 20,000, if you put the council tax up by £1, we raise more than Tamworth do.
Yes.
So what they're saying there is that we've got a better ability to raise income locally through council tax than other councils. And the other councils will be typically the ones that have more properties in the band A to C range, whereas we've probably got more in the D to H range. So they take account of that when they allocate their funding. So they're saying you can fund more locally, so you need less money from the government.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Thank you. Further on that page, if I may, which is the point out the financial resilience and the period leading up to the local government reorganisation. So there's some LGR you'd like to just touch on. And on that first bullet point, emboldened section of the sentence there, it is essential that decisions regarding ongoing service delivery and the medium-term financial strategy of existing councils do not compromise the future sustainability of new councils. So this is, I think, what Councillor Strachan referred to about whatever, that it's not an opportunity for us to take advantage of the review to the detriment of the wider part of Staffordshire, I would suggest. But
that is precisely how I read it. When this was first announced, a councillor I think it was Councillor Ball, presumably flippantly, I expect flippantly, said, let's spend the reserves and buy everything.
You'll be watching this.
I'm sure he is, and if he wants to respond, I'm sure he will. I'm absolutely certain he was joking. This is exactly what the government are telling us that we can't do. We do have to be responsible. We do have to recognise that even if the successor authority doesn't look much like us, it will need to run on something, and so it will be inheriting what we have.
I would just like to touch on parish councils, because that's another thing that comes up.
Chair, could I?
Sorry,
could I ask a question?
yes, please, sorry.
Carries on from that. I absolutely understand the point the government making and you're saying, but I think that there is a reverse side in that we have made certain decisions as a council, for instance, to do with housing and social housing, which have been funded as if the council would carry on. And so it's important that those decisions are implemented in a timely manner and not then lost with the reorganisation. So yes, we can't go and spend everything, but I think we need to be even more critical of ourselves in getting these things done in a timely manner, so we don't lose them.
I completely agree. I can't give you more than that. I completely agree. There has not yet come a guillotine beyond the point at which we're not allowed to do things like that. There will be.
It will be, yeah.
But that has not yet come. And while it's there, we need to press on with our policy objectives as we have set them out and as we've agreed them as a council.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. On the third bullet point, that same paragraph, again, drawing from the letter from the Minister, it talks about avoiding transferring local assets. I just wondered if you had any comments on that, given the leader's update to the last.
You including that about parishes as well, if that's okay, which is what I was going to ask about.
I understood there were some plans for asset transfer.
I don't believe I've seen anything that prevents us from carrying that out, and I am on record within the same cabinet meeting that that was discussed at, suggesting that in order to protect certain treasured local assets, the council consider placing them in trust, for instance, and having a board of trustees recruited locally to manage them. I don't see anything that actively prevents us from carrying out that action. I think this just urges caution in doing so.
You don't think this presents any difficulties for that plan?
Not yet.
The case law, right? Okay, thank you. Page 52 there. The benchmarking section now, which is of interest, although I think I've got my head around the difference, seem to be contradictory figures. I think I'll get unit costs mixed up with the other ones. But on 319 there, if I could just mention this one, which is, 318, the central services in the top 20% of unit costs. So I just want to be clear if I'm understanding that correctly, that it could appear that our central services cost is higher than others. But is that because of the way we calculate central services, or because that was always used to be a thing years ago, and that's all the central costs, or what? Or how can you?
Perhaps the more effective.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, so that particular heading covers things like the chief exec support, cost of members, governance.
Is the difference between us and other councils?
Yes, so
we did it different.
There could be several reasons. I mean, one thing to take account of is that there's a subjective element to this. It's because which councils allocate cost to which of these.
So
if you look at the overall, we're 6.4% lower. I'm talking about the overall unit cost. It could be that we are higher cost, and Councillor Bragg's right, it could be because we get more for them. It could be that in other councils they allocate more of their central cost to the other functions, so some of that might be allocated. For instance, a committee that covers reg and licensing may be allocated to the reg and licensing function, things like that. It's quite difficult to answer the question because there's so much detail that you need to dig into. But you are right in that it could be that it's generally high cost, better delivery. It could be that it's allocated in or apportioned in a different way.
That was thinking anyway. On 3.3.19 and 319, the highways maintenance, and of course we're only talking here for district of unadopted roads. Have we got particularly more unadopted roads than everybody else? Have I misunderstood that?
New developments. I think it's largely because as new developments, and we have had a significant number locally
Waiting for
that have not yet been adopted. They are still.
I give that, yes.
We'd like to speed along the adoption of those roads, but I'm aware that with snagging on the developments, these things do take some time.
Okay, thank you. And then over on to the page 53. Page 53. The leisure centre there at the bottom of the page there. See why that dramatic figure was there. Page 54. 54 Miles, please.
At 3.31 on pay award, it notes that the estimate was 2% this current year. In the event it was 3.2. And I note that the current estimate for next year is 2% as well. So it's my usual question about how much confidence do we have that it will be a 2% award? Have you got any early indications on that front?
You make the assumption, but I suspect probably not.
So the answer probably is no, but if you use inflation as a benchmark, it probably would need to be higher. What we've done in the past is we've set a headline assumption of 2%, and then like we've done this year, we've often had a corporate inflation budget that sits behind that. That means we could go, like in this case, up to about 1.2% extra. I'd probably propose that we do something similar this year, and that corporate inflation budget may need to be higher because of inflation being higher now. I mean, in some parts of the council, inflation is quite volatile. ICT contracts, waste area, fuel, things like that. So I think that's something we need to have a look at with a little bit more time when we've got the outcome of the local finance settlement, because if that comes out better than anticipated, and that that is a genuine possibility, we might have more flexibility to increase those type of budgets to manage that risk.
It's certainly my perception as cabinet member that corporate inflation budget has been very helpful this year and has saved us in a number of different directions. So I would certainly support bringing that in again next year.
Okay. Thank you. Page 55. 56. 57. I mean, the appendices are interesting, so we'll do that shortly. On page 58 there, that just references to the responses on the consultation previously. So how we get on this time. Page 59. And the appendices. First appendix is Appendix A. Then on page 61. Assumptions that refer to. Then, well, Appendix B is certainly technical. It's the one that we have responded to the government's questions. And like question 3, you see, do you agree with the government's proposal to determine GRP using draft VOA list data and SCAT codes in the... Now, I've tracked everything down there. Some were obvious when I realised afterwards. GRP, I cannot find anywhere. What is GRP?
Gross rates payable.
What?
Gross rates payable.
Gross rates payable. Well, you want to tell Wikipedia and God knows what. Surprised how much time I spent on that. It really bugged me, that did.
Just to explain that a little bit more, why that's important.
You want you to, I just want to know what it's good for. You can do.
I've written down an answer now.
Oh yes, please.
So currently, there are 2 business rate multipliers, so there is a standard and a small. The government, in its wisdom, has decided to introduce 5 business rate multipliers from 1st of April 26. So they're specific to retail, hospitality and leisure. So what they're looking to do here is have lower probably levels of multiplier or rate in the pound for those types of business, recognising that they're challenged in the current. What the government have then got to do though is split up the gross rates payable across those 5 areas to understand what the impact is. So the only way they can do it is by using these SCAT or special category codes, which allocate values to these types of businesses. It's not perfect, but that's the only way they've got that information. So I suppose what I'm trying to get across is the government are introducing a lot of change in business rates. So you've got this change, there's a new revaluation. This adds further complexity and volatility to the estimates that are coming forward.
I'll ask you to comment on government policy in that way, but is that the government's reason is for more finesse in the system?
I think
Fairness, I suppose, is.
I think the government.
What's your? I'm not asking for the.
Yeah.
So it's good about it. What's your understanding of the reason for it? Yeah.
Even under the current regime, we give business rate reliefs for retail hospitality, and we've done that for a number of years under the previous government. I think that's got quite a complicated and convoluted system. So I think they're trying to achieve the same aim to support these businesses in an easier or transparent way. That's the way I take it. I think there seems to be cross-party support for these type of businesses to be supported in one form or another.
Okay. We stick there. Okay, page. Presumably, we haven't any questions on this section, but 64, 65, 66, a lot of, yeah. Yeah, the future new burdens. I'm not going to ask a question on that. Page 67. 67, thank you. Councillor Trent.
Just to note the reference to flood defences.
Yeah.
And I think it's a point very well made. Well, I should say, I think I'm really pleased, and I welcome how much detail has been gone into on this document, and given the complexity of it, I really welcome it. But I particularly like the flood defence bit that's gone in there, which is not unique to our area, but is a particular issue.
We have some
missing out.
we have some parts of the district that are prone to, on occasion, getting quite damp.
Yes.
And the presence of that flood defence funding was welcomed, and its absence is of concern.
And some would say it might well get worse. And it only refers here to historically there have been flooding. Is that a point worth making, or has it been made?
I would say it has been made. It's also in the very recent history. There are my ward that flooded last year. There were my former ward that flooded last year. In some cases, quite badly.
Okay. Thank you. 68, 69, 70, 71, 72. I appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this, by the way. I'm flipping over the pages, but 74, 73, 74, 75 there. Question 30, do you agree that the government should work to reduce unnecessary or disproportionate burden created by statutory duties? And you say agree, and you refer to planning appeals. What was the issue there? Do you remember from presumably the planning department's views, or maybe your views? I think.
Oh, I know you.
I think I can't take credit for all of what we've put in. We've taken our own information. We've used district council network, and we've used funding advisors to give us. I think from memory,
you'll never be a politician.
I think from memory,
sharing the credit that
memory, the planning appeals comes from a district council network response. So I think it's
they're upset, not us.
I think it's a recognition that planning appeals create additional work for local authorities, and is there some way of streamlining them, given the question that's been asked?
Yeah, that's good. I think that's very useful, actually. Thank you. Carrying on, 76. Foundation formula. Could you just very, for my sake, just explain what the foundation formula is? That's on page question 42. Do you agree with or have any comments on the design, which you do have, on the foundation formula, but I'm not sure what you're.
So what the government did when they've done the review is they've set some principles that they want the new system to abide by. And one of those principles is they want it to be simpler. So previously we used to get 3 separate allocations. So there was environmental protection, cultural services, the flood defence, fixed costs. Right. So what they've done is they've rolled them all into what they've called the foundation formula. Right. And district councils and county councils will get that. It will be largely allocated on a per population per capita basis. There might be some adjustment for levels of deprivation within an area, but it's probably going to be minor. So it's part of the government's approach to it to be simpler in the way that they allocate the funding in that area.
That sounds like something you'd be welcoming if it turns out as they planned.
I think we've said disagree though, because I think it may be oversimplified, and we go back to the comments previously about flood defence. And a simple formula that just is reflected in a per head can't take account of the nuances in each area, like rivers.
Yes.
Some have got coasts, coastal.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So all of these type of nuances, does a simple formula per capita address those? And I think that's why we've said no to that. I think we'd like a little bit more nuance in that, to be honest.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Page 77. You obviously didn't want us to read. I don't have to explain that any further, do I? Page 79. And then Appendix D with the benchmarking. This was where there might be some questions. Page 81, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, I think it's just my incompetence, I think, but it wasn't clear to me always whether it was good to be 16th out of, you know, it seemed to vary in different things. Whether sometimes you wanted to be at number 1, I suppose, on, I don't know, value for money, but on sometimes being 16th or, you know, I just didn't always understand whether, like what being 4th for street, 4th for highways, what being 16th for parking service meant.
I think,
and was that good or bad? You know, that was good.
So I think it's based on unit costs. So I think if you're at the top, so number 1, I think that's saying you're higher cost or highest cost. I think if you're down the bottom, it's 16. So parking is the example.
That's we're very good at.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you collect a lot of parking income.
Right.
This means I was very good at school.
But then being, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another, was it culture?
You start with a
Yeah, so being 11th, you might want to be top for culture.
And I suppose this is where it there is reasons why you might want to be top. So you might want to, as a policy decision, invest in culture and things like that. So
my point, how meaningful it was to be.
I suppose what we're trying to do here is give you an idea of where we rank in the spectrum, and then for you to be comfortable if we were number 1. You understand why we're number 1. If the council's taken a policy choice to do that, then that's fine. It's just, I suppose, it's you understanding that and the implications of being number 1.
So should we spend more on parking?
Well, that
I don't know.
That's a choice, isn't it? It's a policy decision.
Yeah, thank you. No.
Yeah,
could I follow on that, because I didn't pick up Councillor Hughes, but which is actually really important. But the colour coding in the bands didn't see. I mean, again, I suppose that's the thing, which is good and which is bad, because again, there's public transport is red and second, and other highways is green and first, and so it doesn't seem to flow in a way that is logical to me. But
the colour coding made a value judgment.
Yeah, that's
essentially.
Value judgment.
Yeah, I think it probably has.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to go on to page 84 now, whether you're there or not. Page 85. Not going too many detailed questions on various particular services, but page 86, 87 on those tables. 88, 89, 90. Then we go on to the section on budget consultation for next year. And just, it's a bit odd really, but I'm sure it's only because it's the way it's worded, but the general public could be consulted via social media, but younger people apparently aren't. So I think social media ought to be in there as well. But
I suspect that this is more of a cascade style consultation where the general public, including younger people, are contacted via social media, but younger people are targeted via other
specific
approaches.
Any questions on page 1, page 2?
I just,
Bob, yes.
it's very minor. Are we on 91?
Yes, we're not one for yes, yeah, still.
There's about QR, people that have low digital access. The approaches, one of the approaches is posters with QR.
Yeah,
That's a very good point.
that is a good one, that is,
I
yeah.
don't think they maybe won't be able to scan the QR.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
People take that back. Thank you.
Pedantry is at RS.
The QR code earlier on today, and then we ended with a nap. I don't want an app, I just wanted to get the answer, the link there.
Apparently you've got to be very careful with viruses with QR codes.
Someone once gave me a very interesting point with a QR code left on a lamppost and said, well, would you lick the lamppost? Why are you letting your phone?
Can I just say, I brought in a QR code on the in Birmingham many years ago.
I didn't want to get on the internet. You know.
Thank you, Chair.
Certainly.
I don't know. You know, have each other.
I don't know what's going on. Can I just get back to the meeting? What's happened?
Put a sticker on.
Get the hill. Ron Paisley, just bear with me. Right, page 92. Please. Page 93. That's it, really. That's the end of the, well, our comments on the MTFS. I'm grateful for the answers as well. And I've had detailed response to the government. You may have been cribbing off the network, but have to put it together to make sense. So thank you for that. Yeah. You're not going, are you? For the, you're going to leave us. Good, right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Not allowed, Lee. Not allowed, Chair.
Thanks. Thank you. The next item is 9, which is the work programme.
Only to highlight that the main change to the work programme is that the planning performance report will now come to the next committee and will take a wider 6-month view of performance rather than the original 3-month view that was planned.
I wasn't entirely convinced, but the idea was to have a 12-month and you'll see progress or not progress. We'll just see a better picture there than just a short 6 months, I think was it. So anyway, so I've agreed to that. So hopefully that's okay. Any questions at all on the
Can I just ask one on the Greenway project?
Yeah.
Where it says we requested an update
next 2 or 3 weeks?
January, and then July we were promised more than 2 to 3 weeks, isn't it? Since July.
I believe that was circulated.
Oh right.
Well, the 13th of August one, is that
Right. Oh right. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not a decision, it's an
Yeah.
update.
Yeah.
It was a briefing paper that was circulated.
Yeah. Okay. A briefing. Yeah. You're right. Sorry.
But I think that contained a deadline of which has passed.
Right. Okay.
And the housing and homelessness strategy, that's imminent, I'm told. A briefing paper. Okay. So. Thank you. The next item then, and some of this is in part 2 for obvious, well, not for obvious reasons. I'm going to say this for commercial reasons. There's obviously some things have to be in there. There's some third party independent advice in there as well. So I think we have as much as we can in part 1 of the nursery provision that's been to be discussed. We've got a few questions I think we can ask him in the open session, and if we accidentally stray into the confidential section, hopefully the officer Anthony will just say quickly if that's the case if I've missed it. So I've asked for this. I did ask for this to come to the committee because I did see a brief was shown a report on it, draft report. And I couldn't understand. I mean, this is so unusual for a district council getting involved in nursery provision, and it seemed a bit odd, really, that I did ask the chief executive if he could come to the scrutiny committee, which he's done. I could not call it in because it's below the threshold. So I'm grateful that we've had the chance as a scrutiny committee to look and consider this and give some feedback to officers and obviously eventually the cabinet. So that's the reason why it's here, and I'm grateful for it. And I'm going to ask Kerry to perhaps introduce it at the moment. Yeah, thank
Yes.
you.
Chair. So the report sets out proposals for the District Council to enter a strategic joint venture with Hospitality Lichfield Limited to establish new early years childcare provision within the Pavilion Beacon Park. It's seeking an in-principle decision to proceed with the joint venture and delegates authority for further work to be undertaken, and most importantly, some further due diligence work to be undertaken. So the joint venture will aim to address affordability and workforce challenges in local childcare provision while supporting the council's community and economic development goals. The proposal is the nursery will be operated independently by the JV, which will deliver services to the public at its own commercial risk. The council will make a property contribution through a 7-year lease of the pavilion at a peppercorn rent with no direct service commissioning. The paper details the challenges that are experienced both locally and nationally concerning availability and quality of early years education. And there's obviously a vast amount of international and national research on the importance of early years education on lifelong outcomes, both economically and socially. So, as I said, the council will contribute the pavilion via a 7-year lease at a peppercorn rent. The council will not enter into a contract with a joint venture entity or Hospitality Lichfield to provide any services to the council. The exact corporate structure of the joint venture entity will be determined following further work, but alongside full governance arrangements, setting out how the partners govern and steer the JV strategically. Hospitality Lichfield Limited will invest a significant contribution to refurbish the premises, and a new nursery will be created with capacity for 55 children, charging approximately £60 per day, which is below local market rates. Hospitality Lichfield Limited will operate the nursery on behalf of the JV, and profits will be shared in line with equity, so 80% to Hospitality Lichfield Limited and 20% to the council. As the chair has stated, contained within the confidential appendices are further details on legal considerations, partner selection and rationale, and the initial due diligence that the council has undertaken, which includes an independent review of the viability of the business case. That does identify a number of positive factors, risk factors, and has advised some further due diligence. And as I said at the start, if an in-principle decision on this is taken, further due diligence will absolutely be actioned. We have taken legal advice to ensure that the proposal complies with the council's public procurement obligations. And as the council is not procuring services, supplies or works from either the JV entity or the JV partner, the proposal isn't subject to the Procurement Act 2023.
Yeah, thank you. I can also draw attention to the fact that it's been approved by the Section 151 officer and also by the monitoring officer as well. So I've just got some fundamental questions at the very beginning. I mean, there are some different figures in this report and later on, but slightly different, but they are different. Are there any other buildings that could be used elsewhere in the district, any redundant buildings we're not using at the moment? Because this starts off saying Lichfield, but it could be elsewhere. I'm not convinced it could be elsewhere, which is the reason for my question.
I think the pavilion was identified because we're not utilising all of the space in there, and also the position in the Beacon Park, which...
Are there any other buildings outside of Lichfield City, is my question.
We'd have to take a look at that, Chair.
I don't know, although it says... what would happen with our asset there, if you call it an asset, because it's pretty well an empty building, if this plan doesn't work, run out of money, something they don't get any customers, whatever. What is the effect on LDC in say in 6 months time or a year time? What might be the effect? I'm asking is if there's going to be, if there could be a series of.
So I think within the risk mitigations, there is the ability to break arrangement based on economic circumstances or non-performance. So I think we've outlined a
set of financial projections and a business plan, we would obviously have a presentation on the body that runs the joint venture, and councillors on the new shareholder advisory committee would sit with oversight of what the joint venture would do. I think it would be, we would be able to assess very quickly whether this isn't going in the right direction or not, and there would be provision to break the arrangement if it didn't work. In, I suppose the partner organisation are investing a considerable sum of money, so you would imagine that they've got skin in the game for it to be successful.
It's just about from our end, what the effect would be for taxpayers, which would be successful.
And I guess one of the benefits of the weighting of the equity 80-20, potentially there is some impact to the council, but it's the smaller share of that. And I guess if the building has been converted at the cost of the party, that is an enhanced building potentially that could be used for other things.
Thank you. So we'll go through it page by page. So the executive summary. Any questions on the executive summary in part one a moment? Councillor Hughes. Thank you.
Yeah, I just I hope this is appropriate for the public meet. There's two sort of positive outcomes that are envisaged. One is this, you know, nursery provision, which is obviously needed. We can all agree with that, and slightly cheaper than other places. And there's this vacant building, well, or not completely vacant building, which could be possibly used. I just wondered, you know, and there's aspects of this that we'll have to explore more forensically in private, but the narrative of how it came about. You know, were you sitting in a committee room, or, you know, a house in Bowley Park, or, you know, anywhere, and you thought, gosh, we must find something to do with that pavilion? Or were you thinking, gosh, we must do something about nursery provision? Just wondered how this slightly odd joint venture came about.
So Hospitality Lichfield Limited approached the council directly with the idea to open a nursery in the district. So we had an informal conversation, and we could see how this aligned with our broader strategic ambitions for improving outcomes.
Councillor Bragger.
Yeah, I mean, kind of following on from that, and firstly, can I say I'm really in favour of us doing something like this in Lichfield, Burntwood, and across the district. But that it says that there's very little risk, as in financial risk, to the council. I think there's actually quite a bit of reputational risk. And obviously in public session, not going through all the details, but the company doesn't have any expertise or track record in childcare. It is quite a difficult sector. If after a short time they weren't meeting the various regulations and standards, and Ofsted criticise them, and you know, and sometimes quite drastically can be criticised. That would affect Lichfield Council's reputation, not in losing the asset, but more generally. And so, how I suppose the thinking, but without speaking about specific companies, was it decided that this company met the requirements to be able to do something that is so specialised? And it isn't a matter of seeing if it works in 6 months. Families will be invested in this. It's not like, oh, this family can go to this supermarket one week and that supermarket. If you're investing your child and your whole family arrangements, dropping off, picking up, whatever, it isn't something that you change. So for our residents, we have to be sure that they have the expertise to make a success of it. And in any of this, I don't see how that was assessed.
So you'll note that service quality and reputation are key risks in the risk table at the end of the document, and we have had that independent initial review of the business case, and that is recommending that we do further due diligence into the company who we are proposing to go into a joint venture in. So further due diligence would absolutely be actioned and taken forward.
Could I ask a follow up? So that's with that company. Has there not been any consideration of other people within Lichfield who do have expertise in childcare, rather than it seems a bit strange for a public body to say yes, we're going to look further at these without looking at other people, because that, you know, there is expertise within Lichfield district on in this sector.
Sorry, that was a question. You, I thought.
Yes, I mean, what I'm saying, has that happened, or why? If not, why hasn't that happened?
I think, as the previous question, this was a direct approach by this particular company.
You haven't gone on from there to see if.
But
that's a good idea.
That doesn't exclude the other, does it?
At this stage, no further testing has been done.
I just draw attention to the executive summary rather than the recommendation, but the executive summary says it seeks an in principle decision to proceed. Doesn't seek an in principle decision from us, it'll be for the cabinet, but we have an opportunity to make our views, and it's the in principle decision that you're looking at this stage. I'm right, aren't I? That's what I say, not here necessarily, but yeah, did you? Yes, Councillor Trent, please. Yes.
Well, I would say I just would echo Councillor Bragger's opening comment in particular, that I really welcome this in principle as an idea and something to motivate the council. It's not many years ago that my children were in nursery, and I just felt at the time one of the scandals of sorry,
you bring
and now bring them here, it's a lot cheaper. No, one of the scandals of our time was the expense, but also then coupled with the fact that people working there earn so little and often had to do other jobs to make ends meet. So I really think it's scandalous. So I would add to Councillor Hughes's potential positives the idea that they would be earning above market rate. I think is really important. There are a few concerns and potential risks. In the risk register, it mentions saturating the market as a potential risk. Is there a concern of law of unintended consequences? Councillor Marshall mentioned earlier, is a potential problem that it affects the market adversely, and what we wouldn't want is for other nurseries to have to close down, which then you know, that is an even bigger problem in the sector. It might be we can go into it more in closed session, but do you have any general comments on how it might affect the market?
And I think that point is as a risk factor by the independent assessor of the business case as well. So again, I think that's something we need to do some further investigation into.
I'll just add to that as well. I suppose looking forward, there's going to be a lot of housing growth and population growth in Lichfield district, 750 houses a year. So I guess the point would be is that the market is going to grow. Therefore, there will be opportunities for people that are there to provide that service.
I'll just say, it's not really because I've got young children and having 3 is quite expensive. I think it's a really good idea. I mean, in terms of there is a demand. I mean, trying to find nurseries, daycare, like whatever ages, it's really hard. I'm being told you have to wait 1 year to get into a nursery or preschool. It's really hard. Even like till now, speaking to mums, I think there is we need more affordable care. And then that's my question of here when it says it's the costing per day. What if they want it term time? Because £60 if you have more than 1 child, it's quite a lot. But then if you have term times where it's 15 hours, 30 hours funded, I don't know if they consider it because it's a JV, but would they be considering term time only? Because that would help with costing rather than paying £60 for the full year, maybe times 2 or times 3 or children. So if you consider that.
As you say, that would be for the JV to decide, but
comment as well.
As you said, and I say my experience from not too long ago as well, absolutely nurseries need to provide that flexibility to respond to differing needs of different parents. So I'd expect the JV to consider that really carefully in terms of as much flexibility as possible.
I'm going over the page, and page 100, with the proposal summary. My note here on the second bullet point here that the council will not mandate in the property arrangements that it must be used for that purpose. And this will be a decision for the joint venture. So I just wonder why you're not mandating that. There was a reason for that. You've got the backup of the joint venture and presumably I'll remember the second bullet point on the 3.5.
I think what that point's saying there is that comply with the procurement side of this. We can't put in place.
You can't do that.
Yeah, so there would be a joint venture, but we wouldn't have a contract between us and the joint venture to provide this. The contracts would all be between the joint venture and the parents.
Yeah.
Like that. I think what we would look to do though is to make sure that the property can only be used for nursery provision, so that they can't then decide, well, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do something more or something like that. And I think that is one of the safeguards that's mentioned in the report.
Okay. And then on 3.6, you've got the compliance with the procurement principles there, which maybe if I looked at more carefully, we'll take it back to that. Page 101, that is on page 102. Well, a question there, but that was answered very early on. Yeah, well, there's basically the legal implications there, which we have to comply with, obviously. Just a little one here, just on the last bullet point on the section on top, page 103, the best consideration, and the as the property comprises land and property, the property team surveyor believes it will be necessary to advertise the details in a local newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks and consider any objections. Try not to get too much involved there, but we've got 2 newspapers, one that's only every 2 weeks, and another one which is daily almost. How are you going to manage that? And if you haven't thought about that yet, of course. No, sorry. Let me just highlight that as an issue, and that's all. Silly question, really, from myself there. Sorry about that. And then on the data assessment there, it sort of goes on about Lemsley ward there. I'm not sure why that ward is picked on there, because presumably people want to work in Lichfield, they've come from anywhere. So, but you have to do that. Is that what you're going to say to me or something?
I think my presumption is that's where the pavilion is catered, but as you say, obviously, it'll impact.
Yeah. And then over page 104, the risk description and so on. I mean, there's on the health and safety there's a lake next there, and unless it's been changed, dogs are allowed to run loose in Beacon Park, and if you complain to the ranger, that didn't used to do anything. Maybe it's changed now, but having seen a close call for a child once, just point that out, that ought to be in there, you know what I mean? Yeah. You've got the current scores on those, and red there is the breaches of customer privacy through mishandling of sensitive data. Best practice there. Page 105, any questions? And then that's the end of that. So is there more questions in part 2? I'll have to go through the process of going into part 2, into part 1, and I'll have to go into part 2. Okay?
Yeah.
So, moving the exclusion of the public and press and public, rather, resolve that as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which would involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of that wonderful Local Government Act 1972.